This Roman blind is made over 3 years ago. This is going to be another relocation. This Roman blind is for a large window, and what we're going to do is I'm going to cut it, reduce it to side and turn it sideways. This is the correct way of looking at it. So I'm going to now reduce it to size. It's a very woolly fabric, very thick, and that's what it looks like. And now I've got to pull it apart. So let's cut all the strings off. This Roman blind was in the kitchen, and considering that it was in the kitchen over the kitchen sink, it's still in good condition. This was done, I think it's 2009, so it's roughly 3 years old and still going strong. Why do you need to change completely? There's your mechanism. We're going to cut this down to size. Now, well, I should measure this and tell you what the size is. This Roman blind is 136 centimeters, which is 53 inches drop, and the width is, say, roughly 180 centimeters, which is 70 inches wide. And what I'm going to bring it down to is alway. I'm going to bring it down to 108 centimeters wide, and the drop I'm going to bring it down to 162 centimeters, and this is a recess, so it's going inside the window. That one. I've done all the others and you've seen it. So now I'm going to do that one. So here we go. We're going to pull this apart, unpick all these tubular tapes, and everything I'm going to use the same thing. I'm not going to put new ones on, because as well as they're keeping their cost down, so am I. I'm not charging them, so Oh, let me explain. Not all Roman blinds you can turn sideways. This one I can turn sideways because it's plain and the grain goes both way. So no matter which way I put it, the only way it's going to be different is whether it's dull or shiny. And who cares when it's up? So long as you've got it up and you've saved your money, that's it. So this is able, so if you've got a fabric which has got a pattern in it and it can't be turned upside down or any other way, then I'm afraid you're stuck. But this one, I can do this. So this Roman blind, when you're looking at it, it's finished that way. So now we're going to turn it and make it that way. I've still got the same amount of work to do in it because it's virtually remaking it. So let's pull it apart and try not to damage the fabric. These tubular tapes that I've taken off, I'll re-iron them and put them back on. Here are the rods, they're out. So really, I'm taking this back to basics. This tubular tape that I took off, this is the type of tubular tape that you stitch both ends down. And I've moved on from then. I've moved on to the tubular tape where you only stitch one end in. So guess what? For the sake of me not doing so much work, I'm going to put on a new tape to save myself time and swallow the cost. This tubular tape, it has a hole along the here where you're able to thread the bar through. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it. So you can insert it. So you only stitch one end down, which is brilliant. So I'll be putting on a new tape. This Roman blind is interlined. So it's nice and quilted, it's nice and thick. $162, so I'll try it out. $162 by 108. Oh, I've got plenty. 108. So let's turn this up first. Still got to find my right angle. I haven't forgotten. So I've turned it up. I'm just getting it roughly to what I want so far, because that's roughly what I want. Now I've got to check my right angle. As you can see, this needs to come in. I don't want to take the hem up because I've measured the hem, so I'll do it from the side. That's my right angle sorted. So that's my 2-inch seam, side seam. So that's that cut off. And what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up. We're going to open it up because this is so bulky. I'm now going to cut off. Because I've ironed it, I can see my ironing mark. And I'm going to cut both the interlining and the lining because I don't need it. So I'm going to use the mark of my ironing, the imprint, to cut this off. The curtain's not this tall, so I can cut that. Now, for those of you who've seen me do this so many times before, you can first fell the inside one down first. Or like me, like now, what I will do is just dab stitch it. Stab stitch all the way along when I hem the side. Sometimes I don't feel that it's necessary for me to fell it down because I'm stitching on top going across. It holds. You can make a pelmet board out of that. just too bulky. What I've done up the top here is I've cut off the interlining and the lining and brought it down to the exact measurement of what I want, which is 162 centimeters. And the reason why I've done that is because when I put the Velcro on, I don't want that top bit to be so bulky. And to try and maintain your right angle at the corner, because you can lose it. Here is another tip. Cut your Velcro to the finished length that you want it to be. Because what also happened at the top as well is when you're stitching this on, the fabric underneath the Velcro tend to pucker and it gathers itself in. So hence it will make it smaller than what you actually want. But if you have the Velcro to the finished width that you want, you tend to stretch the fabric to fit this, so it will always finish at what you want. So that's a little tip. So here we have here, I measure it there, and I'll double sure to make sure by cutting the Velcro to the length that I want it at. Now it's time to actually tidy all this up. You notice at the bottom of this Roman blind, I did not bother to cut off the hem. Why? Because it's an added weight, and I know my machine can take this thickness, so I leave it on. After all, I am putting weight in the curtain, in the Roman blind, so why not have its own weight as well, which is the fabric weight. and I've given it a 3-inch turn up here. It didn't need it. It only needed less than 2 inches because the bar is only 1 inch. But I put it there because, you know what, you allow for any mistake, because when you're doing all this, it shrinks in certain places. By the time you hang it up, you've got that little bit of light. So if your customer doesn't want it and it wants it out, you could always got fabric there to let it out. So that's kind of like a precaution, safe precaution, because you know fabric does shrink. You measure it out at the size that you want, and somewhere along the line you've lost 1/4 of an inch or a couple of centimeters. Right, so let's tidy this up. You don't have to see me do this. Right, so now I'm going to put the tubular tapes on now. But with this now, I've got to recalculate it. Now, the tubular tape that I took off, it only had 3 on it. This time it's longer, so I've got to recalculate it and put more tapes on it. Now, this is a recess. That means it's going inside the frame of the window. So once you put Roman blinds inside, by the time it pleats up and it comes down, you will be losing a little bit of your light. Now you can, if you get it wrong, you can lose up to 14 inches. So what we have to do is try and get it as small as we can, but not looking too pathetic. So I like to try and get it to at least around, say 6, 7, 8 inches. So that's what we're doing. And so this one, I'm going to divide it by 9. You can divide it by 11 if you wish. The more you divide it by, the smaller it gets. So I'm going to divide it by 9. But first of all, I'm going to take off 2.5 inches at the top first to allow for my mechanism. So 2.5 inches, take it away, which turns out to be roughly 6 centimeters. So from the 6 centimeters, I'm going to start calculating. So originally the drop of this is 100, what was the drop originally? 162 centimeters, which is 63 inches drop. So what I'm going to do now is to take away the 2.5 inches. So now it comes down to 157.5 centimeters. So 157.5 centimeters divided by 9 works out to be 17.5 each gap. But what we do is the 17.5 each gap is my first calculation at the bottom. So I mark it 17.5. So that's my first one. And then I do from here on, because I can't be bothered to measure it all up. Then I say 17.5 times by 2 equals 35 centimeters. From here on now, I work out 35 centimeters, going all the way out, because it's folded. The first one's not folded, the others are folded on itself. So 35 centimeters. So there we go, 35 centimeters all the way up. So it's at this point I put my pins in. And because I want to make sure it's equal, I don't go round the other side and measure it up again. What I do is I fold it. I put that there to stop so much air going into it. I gently fold it. And while it's folded at this point, it gives me a chance to check everything out as well. I check that the corners meet up. And I check that both of them are the same length. And the majority of the time it isn't. So then I find out which one is wrong and then I correct it. So this is just called tweaking. So now I continue, here we go, I continue and I put the pin in so they're equal. And this is very important because if you've got one pin down, then by the time you pull it up, it's going to be on the slant. So this to me is the best way of getting it equal. Now we put it back and then we're going to draw our line. Now I'm going to use a yellow tailor's chalk, and from pin to pin, where's my first pin? As you can see, this is why you need two people, because there's quite a lot of walking around this table. So that's the first one. So that pulls up to here. So this is where you get your fold. There's no fold there. That's why that one is the half the size of this. Now this is the old tape, which it can go back on, so you don't have to waste it. You can put it on but you've got 2 stitchings to do, one at the top, one at the bottom. I've moved on from then. I only do 1 stitch, and that's because I'm using this tape, and you thread it through this. So to save time on me, I'll just, when I've run out one day, I'll use that for something, the demo, because you don't have to waste things. I don't encourage people to waste things. Now you have to be careful with this as well. There's 2 different sizes on this as well. This one is like 1/2 inch, and there's another one which is 1 inch. So just be careful which one you use. And if you're using the wood to go through these, then you'll use the other one. And the wood, the circular wood where you get from the hardware shop, will go through it. As you can see, I'm using fibre rods, so it makes life much more simpler. And I find as well is that sometimes when you buy the rods from the wood from the shop, they're always sometimes warp. So here we go, new tapes. And quite honestly, I wouldn't go throwing things away because they are quite expensive.